You are about to enter a great adventure.
This is Strutting From Gorilla.
Hey everybody, it's true. Strutting from Gorilla is back with a brand new episode. Today we're doing a superstar spotlight on our boy, the Olympic gold medalist, the originator of the three I's, intensity, integrity, and intelligence, Kurt freaking Angle. So as always, myself, Mikey Cash is here. Alongside me is Big Vito. How you doing, Big Vito?
I won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck, Mikey Cash. Okay, this guy, Kurt Angle, Olympic hero, one of the best wrestlers in my opinion in WWE history. I'm excited about this spotlight today. We've been waiting a while to do this.
That's right.
I'm pumped.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both. So as you can tell, Big Vito is enthusiastic. He's ready to get going. But before we do that, we need all you jabronis to find us on the socials. So the rundown is Facebook at SFG Podcast, Twitter and TikTok at @from_gorilla, on Instagram at SFGorillaPod, and our website, struttingfromgorilla.com. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating and review. We'd appreciate it. Now, without further ado, Vito, Kurt Angle, Pennsylvania's own, the American hero. He won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. Multiple-time WWE champion. Hall of Famer. Multiple-time Match of the Year candidate. I mean, what more did this guy do?
You know, what's great about this superstar spotlight, unlike a lot of the other ones, is I feel like me and you both saw the beginning of his career.
It's true.
All the way to the end of his career, right? So that's something that I don't know that we've had the pleasure of being able to do with some of these other superstars. Like, we were really young when we talked about The Undertaker and Austin and Mick Foley and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. So I remember Kurt coming in and being like, who is this jabroni? Like, we got this guy coming in, and what were your first thoughts on him? Because I remember the day he came in. Like, I remember it yesterday, and he came in and just took off like a rocket ship, you know?
I remember the vignettes that were airing before Survivor Series 99, and you could tell already that he was a heel, but he didn't know he was a heel. He honestly thought that he was just like boasting about how good he was in the Olympics and the fact that he wanted to bring some legitimacy to pro wrestling. And I think in his mind, he thought that was a good thing, but everybody that was watching it was, well, you know how we as fans are pretty protective and defensive of the business. So I think that already set him up to come in as a heel. I remember watching that match. It was at Survivor Series. It was against Sean Stasiak. Do you remember that guy? Or he was wrestling as meat for a time because he was like coming out with like Terry Reynolds. And was it Ivory or Jacqueline? It was like one of the two. He had like two women with him. And the match was like a complete dud. It actually was like not a great match. So I was like, well, I guess we'll see. But I guess he's one of the exceptions to not having a first impression that you just build off of. So he made quite the impression after that match, because as you could tell, the guy just took off. His promo skills were something that I don't think I've ever seen somebody grow with before as just a natural heel. Like that, I loved his style of promo, how he would enter and he'd be sort of like giving a promo as he's walking down the ramp coming to the ring. I just loved that style. You don't see a lot of that anymore.
It's very much like an MJF type of promo, not to like the intensity that MJF has, but it's like that same thing where he'll come in and give you something and you're like, oh, this guy's not a heel. And then all of a sudden he jabs at you, right? You'd be like, today we're going to talk about intensity, right? intensity and the integrity of Philadelphia, and then he'll put in a jab about the Steelers or whatever it might be, and the crowd just goes bananas
Mm-hmm.
and hates him. But then, you know, it's hard not to hate him. But he also was this gold medalist, and I remember thinking, like, who's Kurt Angle? Because
Right.
I watched the not AEW, A&E documentary on Kurt Angle, which is really good if you get a
Mm-hmm.
chance and you want to learn more about Kurt Angle, not just like his wrestling career, but beforehand, everything that led up to it,
Yeah.
his Olympic trials and some of the troubles he had, which we'll talk about. But the thing that stuck out that I remember is WWE offered Kurt Angle a contract right after he won the gold medal.
That's right. They wanted him.
And he turned it down. He was never this big wrestling guy. He knew wrestling, but he turned it down. And then years later, he wanted to go into the wrestling and wanted to take them up on it, but it was too late, right? And the money that they offered him before, they didn't offer him again because why would they? All of a sudden, you're taking the fame that he had at that time, and he said no.
I think it was like it was something like 2 years later after he had already won the gold medal, and to that point, I think in '96, isn't that also when they signed Mark Henry?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
And he was the same. He was presented, and I think the same light they wanted to present Kurt Angle, which
You're
was
right.
he was this American hero because Mark Henry was also on the Olympic team, and I think I wonder if they signed Mark Henry as a plan B. I don't know. I have no idea, but I was just curious if maybe they couldn't get Kurt Angle, so they got Mark Henry, which both of those investments turned out. So no one's complaining about it.
100%. You know, the one story that I always, and I don't know if this is a true story or not, but I heard it all the time. When he was coming into wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
I know after WWE, he turned it down. I'm sure he looked at other wrestling promotions.
He went to ECW for like a quick cup of coffee. He was talking with Heyman. I want to say it was '97 or something like that, and he was thinking about doing it, and he was like kind of close to signing with them at one point, which was just kind of mind-boggling when you just think about the culture at ECW and all just the way things were in that kind of environment, all the drug use and the hardcore matches. There wasn't a super big focus on technical wrestling. So anyway, I remember hearing about this on the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD. I was watching that and just never knew this story that he was ready to sign. He was backstage with Heyman, and I think that's when they did the whole crucifixion angle with was it Raven and Stevie Richards or something like
Sandman.
that? Oh, Sandman. I'm sorry. And as soon as he saw that, I guess Kurt Angle just got completely turned off and said, I'm out of here. I'm not doing it. And I think next thing you know, he hooked up with WWE and the Funks who trained him. So wild.
You know what's funny about that is I bet he would have put on some absolute bangers.
Dude, he would have.
Because years later, those same guys that were there at the time, Chris Jericho,
mm-hmm.
Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Juventud
even
Guerrero.
Raven. I think can you imagine Angle versus that form of Raven? Not the Raven that was in WWF and was just jobbed out, but that version of Raven, that would have been awesome.
Oh, would have been unbelievable. Even Taz, him and Taz. Yeah. I mean, they had. You got to remember though, like he ended up having all of these matches in WWE with some of these guys. Like, and so I'm curious to see what it would have been like in
that format. What it would look like in that world, in the ECW world. How would that have been booked? What would have been the story behind it?
Right, would have been great.
Right. Yeah. Without the restraints that WWF had been putting on people at that time, or even now, but it would have been interesting.
I agree, and the crazy part is, you know, years later, you can go back and look, and even in the documentary, they talked a lot about how quickly he adapted to wrestling, right? As a guy who was never this giant fan of wrestling, he just was a worker, right? He was a giant worker. And before we get into his career, there are some things I want to talk about that
Let's do it.
that I think really transformed the guy that we saw in the ring. And ultimately led to a lot of the personal problems he had and his fallout with WWE to go to TNA and the path he chose. So, you know, at the beginning, they talk in this documentary a lot about his dad who died at a really young age. And it really affected Kurt Angle. Then you go on, and years later, you know, he has this desire and this motivation that you don't see from a lot of people. Like the top athletes in the world always have this mindset, and you know, there's a lot that goes into a physical athlete that you can't teach, right? But beyond that part, what takes people to the next level in the Olympics or in professional sports is your mindset and how you get there. And to me, that psychological part, I'm always so enthralled by, because you never know what their motivation is. And you can't teach some of this stuff and the dedication they have. And watching the documentary when he was training for the Olympics, you could tell like he was training like multiple hours a day. And he was doing training that was longer and harder than most other Olympic athletes. And he would train till failure and then keep going, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
And like,
it's remarkable.
It's
remarkable.
It is. And it's like, what's that desire? Like, what is it? And a lot of it stemmed from his dad. Like he had this motivation. He told his dad he wanted to do certain things, and he kept that. And that was a lot of his motivation. And I find it fascinating.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And for any of our listeners right now, I would encourage you to check out, it's an episode of a podcast called Real Ones. It's with John Bernthal. And he was, for people who watch the Netflix show Punisher, he was the Punisher. So he is actually related to Kurt Angle. He's sort of married into the family. And so he has Kurt Angle on, and Kurt shares a lot about his past and shares a lot about the upbringing. And there was that family, the Angle family, was very well known as being tough. That was sort of their reputation. His brothers were people that would go around and pride themselves on winning fights. People would challenge Kurt Angle's brothers to just fights because they would hear about it. And it sounds like something out of like West Side Story or something, you know, like people just walking up to you like, hey, what do you say? Let's fight. You know, like it's a weird thing. But Kurt Angle was saying, hey, that this was sort of my everyday. And I think that sort of culture getting instilled in him, and that idea of you have to be tough, you can't be showing any sort of signs of weakness. So I think for him, he called it exhaustion training, where he would train to the point of exhaustion and then continue. And that for him, that was his way of building up stamina. And, you know, to another point, Vito, outside of his dad, one of the bigger mentors in his life was Dave Schultz, who was an amateur wrestler at the time and was under sort of the Foxcatcher team. And for people who don't know about this, John DuPont, he was the heir to the DuPont fortune in, I think it was in Pennsylvania, sort of out there in Pennsylvania. He was this millionaire, billionaire philanthropist, but he also had incredible interest in training athletes, and not personally training, but he would sort of front all the money. He was sort of like a backer for that kind of thing. And at one point, Kurt Angle was on the sort of the DuPont, I guess, compound. I don't know what we would have called it, but he basically was there on the grounds, and he was training under Dave Schultz. And for those who don't know, unfortunately, Dave Schultz was murdered by John DuPont. And, you know, when we talk about some of the things that Kurt Angle has been through, losing his father, and now also losing a very close mentor who he considered very fatherly / brother in Dave Schultz, it was incredibly formative for him, you have to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Your dad passes away at a young age and doesn't get to see you do all this, and you're already motivated by that because, you know, he cared about his dad. Then you take into effect his next father figure was this guy, David Schultz, and all of a sudden he's training for the Olympics with this guy, and he gets murdered. Like, think about that. You're in the middle of this extremely difficult, challenging, goal and achievement, and you're getting there, and the guy who's the motivation, the teacher, gets murdered in the middle of it. What do you do? And the Kurt worked with his wife to help finish out the sponsorship of his Olympic run. And to me, I don't know if that doesn't happen. Sure, I'm sure Kurt still goes in and probably has a similar chance. But I think a lot of it going into it, you look at that and it's like, how do you not fail? How do you not take the exhaustion that you have and then train harder because of it, with that motivation? And, I think from a mental standpoint, it obviously gives you ammunition to do well. But I think there are underlying layers, which you see come up in his career later on.
Sure.
That rather than dealing with the emotional trauma of a lot of it, he used it as motivation. And that's great. But I think there are parts that come out in his addiction that he doesn't address well enough. And then you add in the fact that as he's going along, after he wins the gold medal, he has to deal with his sister who has addiction issues to drugs, and she dies.
Right.
And it's just a lot to put on one single person. I don't care if you're the most mentally tough person in the world. If you don't address those and deal with things like that the correct way, it's going to come out and bite you some way down the line. And I think you saw that with him, and we'll talk about that. But, so his trainer dies, gets murdered, and he goes on and wins the Olympic gold medal, right? Like, huge achievement. And he does it with a broken freaking neck. Like, and that's legit. And it was a close match, right? Like, I think if you go back and look, it came down to the judge's decision, right?
I think so.
And it was very, very close, and he ended up winning. But he wasn't supposed to be in that match. He legit had a broken neck, and he pushed through it and still won. And there were points in the match where he was targeting his neck, and you could see, and it made sense from opponent's side to do that. You have a weakness. You're trying to win a gold medal. Yeah.
I mean, that's amateur wrestling, pro wrestling 101. I mean, that's psychology, right? There's a weakness. I'm going to try to exploit it.
Yeah.
I think that whatever shot, he got some sort of cortisone shot or something in his neck that I think completely blocked the nerve. So he didn't feel anything, he said.
Yeah.
He said once after the initial break and in between the matches, he gets this shot. And so the guy's going for his neck and he's like, I don't feel anything. He's like, I'm hearing all of these things happen, like all this crunching, which I can't imagine what that's like. But he's just pushing through it and ends up winning the gold medal. And I think it's a great achievement. It's something that very few of us as people end up doing. So I think that puts him in rarefied air, to me at least.
Yep.
But to sort of go off of your point, Vito, he has so many losses. And as we were talking about the kind of culture he grew up in, which is you don't show weakness, you just keep moving, you just keep working, only sustains you to a point, and then it becomes hurtful towards you to not be processing that kind of thing. So I'm not going to get all social worky on us right now because this is a pro wrestling podcast, but the bottom line is these are things that were definitely influencing him and continue to build up as he gets into pro wrestling, which we're going to talk about now.
Yeah.
So he trains, a couple years past the, Vito, did you want to
I just wanted to say, he's training, but the reason we talk about his past and all of this stuff going on is we talked about him being this green guy who comes into wrestling.
Right.
But even guys who are pro wrestlers that train their entire life don't ascend the way he does and don't come in and adapt to wrestling the way he does so quickly.
That's right.
And I think it's because of that work ethic and his ability to want to win and his ability to want to do well is that and you combined it with his amateur wrestling style, he was able to ascend so quickly. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of parallels there. And I just wanted to kind of point that out as we talk about him getting into the wrestling business.
Oh no, thank you, Vito. That makes perfect sense. Uh, so so he's using this motivation. He's got incredible work ethic. He's got incredible skill. The guy catches on like wildfire. Uh, Many people within the wrestling business say that they have never seen someone catch on to pro wrestling like Kurt Angle has. And quite frankly, watching his development from that 99 Survivor Series match, which, listen, personally, I thought it was a dud, but it only got better from there. And what Royal Rumble 2000, he has that match with the debuting Taz, and that was a really good match. That was a great match. I mean, I remember being pumped for Taz when I was
me
there,
too.
but and then he has probably one of the most incredible years a rookie I've ever seen. So he wins the European title, he wins the Intercontinental title, and then October he wins the King of the Ring before that in June, and then October 2000, No Mercy. He's going 1-on-1 with the Great One, and he beats him. Middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3, and he wins his first WWF championship, which is remarkable. I mean, Vito, like, is that not one of the best years you could have in your rookie year? You just basically made yourself a Grand Slam winner.
No, it's probably one of the best you'll see. And the way that it happened is phenomenal. And it's not one of these, hey, I'm a third generation superstar, like I need to be pushed to the moon and back. Like, he earned it. And
Dude, yeah.
And I think as fans, that's what you want to see, right? Like, you want to see someone who is, you don't know the behind the scenes stuff at that time and all of that, but you can feel it. You can feel a difference with a wrestler who's doing that and working hard. And I think, as you continue to go down that road, the grind of all of it, and especially he was going at 1,000,000 miles an hour,
you
know, and we talked about this a lot in our podcast about, the pressure you have from being on the top, and you don't want to lose that top spot, because the minute you lose that momentum, it can be challenging, right? And so he's doing all these things, and at that time the schedule is not even remotely close to what it is now. You're working 300 plus days a year,
Right.
You're on the road,
much more grueling.
You're working through injuries, whether it's serious or not, and you're making decisions because you're an independent contractor and you have a limited amount of money, and you can take this lightning bolt and keep riding it, or you take time off if you have injuries and risk the chance of coming back and losing that momentum. And he went so fast, so hard, it was challenging. And so, I mean, think about, before we get on to, like,
Sure,
some of the downfalls of all of that, like some of his career highlights, like, I think when I think of Kurt Angle, one of my favorite matches, it wasn't even with a real wrestler, it was with Shane McMahon. Like, when was it King of the Ring? I think
it was King of the Ring 2001.
Yeah, and he goes to try and throw him through the
plate glass.
Glass.
They got the wrong glass for it. I guess they ordered the wrong one, because if they ordered it thinner, it would have exploded during the pyro. So they had to get regular plexiglass. I don't know if it was plexiglass or some other form of glass, but bottom line is that's why none of it broke on the first throw. So he's just dropping Shane on his head a couple of times.
And Shane was like, "Do it again." And Kurt's like, "I don't want to do it again.
I'm gonna hurt you."
Yeah. No, that was one of my favorite matches that he had. It was great. But one thing we forgot to talk about, and I always laugh at this because I never realized any of this, but his entrance music they gave him, it's generic entrance music.
It is.
So the ones that he comes out to and everyone chants, "You suck."
Yeah.
You suck. So I didn't realize this until I watched WWE Network, and Sergeant Slaughter came out to that same music years ago. It's just a generic track that they used. and I had no idea. No
I
idea.
I hope that that's not a WWE Network edit. You know
No,
how?
I don't think it is.
All right,
I don't think
because
it
I don't.
is.
I just don't know anymore half the time when I watch old
I
stuff
know. I
that
know.
they lose music rights or whatever, or they change things, or you know
Yeah,
how they are.
you might be right, but I don't think it is, because it was just a generic track um that it's kind of like the Hardy Boys. Theirs is a generic track too, and it yeah, it just took off. But now think about it. That's how big of a star you are. You can take generic music and then all of a
Make it
sudden,
work.
yeah. And he never changed his music outside of going to other promotions.
Right.
But it just that's crazy to me that he could take that and
You just it just reminded me. I was thinking about Kurt Angle's music, and I'm fairly certain that The Patriot also came out to that
he
music.
did come out
Oh
to
my
that.
god!
Yep. Yeah,
Wow,
he did.
Vince
Yes.
just recycling music for various wrestlers. Good for you.
But like that's the type of thing, like, you have the it factor
Mhm.
when you can come out to generic music and it doesn't matter, because like the music is like is a big part of the entertainment experience,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
And when you take that out of the equation and you can make any of that work, like, it just to me is like, wow, oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, I
Anyone can
agree.
take this music and do well, but all of a sudden you're taking it and you don't even, I don't know, it just
Yeah.
it even you hear that music, you automatically know Kurt Angle. You don't think Patriot or Sergeant Slaughter or anybody else who came out to that.
So, all right. So, dude, we've touched on some of like his matches, like some of his accolades. We've touched on his music.
Yeah.
Should we talk a little bit about some of his promo slash backstage
Oh,
segments? Because I feel like some of those were comedy gold.
yeah, I mean, okay, what was one of your favorite? Because I could
Oh,
name a
for
dozen.
me, this is personal, hands down. It was during the whole invasion angle, and it was when Austin and him were both kind of injured, so they were doing a lot of backstage stuff, and like there's a whole series of them where it's Austin like playing the guitar, and then
Oh.
Kurt Angle gets it, and he's like Jimmy Crack Corn, and I don't care, and like, or when he gets like the hats, and so like Austin buys Vince this like Stetson hat, and then Kurt comes in and he's like, "Oh, did you get me one?" He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and he gets him like a little kid's cowboy hat, and he's like, "Yippee ki
Yeah.
and it has one of the best lines, and it's like a kind of a throwaway line by Austin in this, but it's something that I say to Mango to this day, which is, "I like you, not very much, but I like you." And it's like I don't know why, but that just gets me every time. But
Oh,
those promos with him and Austin had such great chemistry together, both in the ring and on the mic. It was phenomenal.
I mean, he had chemistry with everybody. It
He
wasn't
did.
just even Austin, and I think that was half the reason. Like, the thing about him is he was very authentic, and he was himself, and he took it and he ran with it, and he even said it in his Hall of Fame speech. He's just like, you got the Kurt Angle that was Kurt Angle. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, you got an authentic me, and whatever you do, you go in and you own it. Because if he didn't do that, and
Yeah,
he went in and just kind of like, I don't really want to do this. Like, he took what was told to him to do, and who knows, probably put his own spin on it a little bit. But
I'm sure.
to me, my favorite was the sexy Kurt. Like,
When he
it just, he came out and the way he almost mimicked Shawn Michaels and changed the lyrics around, and then to bring out Sensational Sherry with him while he
Mhm.
did it. Oh, dude, it was just so good. And
Yeah.
like, it, oh, that was my favorite by far.
Oh, okay. What about
That
the
was my favorite.
signs with Edge? Remember those? Like the first time they did it, because they just did it recently when he was back on, and I
Yep.
loved it. They
Yep.
did a really good job with like kind of coming full circle with it. But
Yep.
the first one was so good because
Yep.
I just love that. I love that stuff.
But that's where the "You Suck" chant came from.
Yeah, yeah.
Was Edge, right? I think it was on an
I think
episode of
Edge started.
SmackDown.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, "You suck." And then just the fans took off. And I mean, I love how the "You Suck" chants during his intro when
Mhm.
he was heel. it was a heel thing to say to somebody.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
then when he was not a heel and he was babyface, people still did it, and it
Oh,
became
you
like
remember?
a center of love.
Now I'm having a flood of memories. Do you remember? I think it was back in '03, but he had a rap battle with John Cena back when
Yep.
he was
Yep.
Thugonomics John Cena, and it was it was like ridiculous, but it was great.
Yeah. It was really good. And I think, the other part outside of his amazing promos, and there's one we didn't talk about, which I think you're going to mention in a little bit, but the thing is, like, not only was he funny, good on the mic, and a great wrestler, but I think a lot of people had no choice but to respect him
Yes,
because he was a badass motherfucker.
dude,
Like,
he was.
like there are times. So I think there was a little animosity between him and Brock Lesnar because you got this NCAA beast of a man
Right.
who also was a wrestler and comes in, and he was a little bit younger, but clearly twice as big as Kurt. Like, just
Oh
like a
yeah, I
beast.
mean, he's a monster of a man. He was this collegiate standout, and
Yeah,
before he got into WWE,
yeah.
remarkable.
But you know who didn't give a shit about that?
Kurt fucking Angle.
Kurt Angle. And
Right.
so I didn't know about this till recently over the last year or so. But like, I think the two of them just had this beef. And I don't think, if like in the ring, there's no beef, right? Like, I think it was just more of like this unspoken beef of who's the better wrestler.
Right. It was a
who's the tougher
competition.
motherfucker?
It's competition. Is
Yeah.
what it was.
Who's the tougher motherfucker? That's really it. Like, who is it? Who is it? And from what I understand, they got into a legit wrestling match.
Yeah.
And Kurt Angle kicked his ass.
Kurt Angle did kick his ass. I think this happened also in 2003 or something like that.
Yeah,
They were just backstage and shooting the shit, and next thing you know, they're having a legit match. They're having a legit amateur wrestling match against one another, and Kurt Angle took him down. I was actually surprised because, I mean, look at Lesnar. He's gigantic. He's got great reach. He's got the size. He's got the agility.
Yeah.
But you're messing with an Olympic gold medalist. Dude knows what he's doing.
He had this other level. Like,
he's got a tenacity about him. Is the word that comes to mind.
But even in the wrestling matches, like, think about it. There were times, and it was like his signature. You get like Hulk Hogan, he'll like Hulk up. He does that like thing. Angle had this like other level, this switch, right? Like, he'd be in these grueling long matches. Like, there's matches he had with Eddie Guerrero, with Chris Benoit, where they would be technical matches and steal the show. And I think of the Royal Rumble. I don't remember which one it is, but it's
2003. Him versus Benoit. I just watched it last night.
Yeah.
In prep.
That was the one where, Triple H faced Scott Steiner, and it was like it sucked.
A dud.
Yeah, I was actually there. I was there at that one.
Oh, because it was in Boston. I forgot.
Yeah, I was there, and I remember that match stealing the show and being like, wow, that was one of the better matches I've seen ever. Yeah. And the thing is, like, he'd get into it and he'd be wrestling for 25, 30 minutes, and all of a sudden, he would do a suplex, and then he would hit this other gear. And like, it was his quickness. He'd get up and sprint on the ropes and then suplex you. And it was like this other gear. And you don't see somebody do that when they're that tired. And it just, to me, was crazy. And unfortunately, as you got older, the second run in WWE, when he came back and he tried to wrestle a little bit, he didn't have that anymore. And it's just natural with age and his body being weathered.
We can get to that. But should we talk a little bit about some of our favorite matches of his? I mean, we talked about some promos. Should we talk about a little bit of that?
Yeah.
So, Vito, what's on your list? What are some personal favorites of yours?
Well, I talked about Shane McMahon. That one is one of my favorite. If you're just saying, okay, think of Kurt Angle, what matches come to mind? There are two that I will say. Number one is the Shawn Michaels match. And again, we come back and it's always Shawn Michaels.
Agreed.
But you put two of those performers that are probably the tops of all time, and I mean, look at the match you got. And it was from Kurt's. I remember him talking about it. It's one of his favorites too.
Absolutely.
And he was like, it was an effortless match. Like it was just like me and him had this chemistry, and
Mm-hmm.
it flowed and blah 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 blah. But that was a great match. And
Beautiful match.
the other one that comes to mind is the Lesnar match, and I think he had multiple matches
Yeah,
with
he had a
Lesnar.
few.
But I think about the WrestleMania match where Brock had the shooting star press that he
He
botched.
messed up.
Yeah, which he used to do all the time in
OVW.
Yeah, OVW.
Yeah.
But that match was an awesome one too. You got these
Absolutely.
two hard hitting guys that would go after each other, and you talk about suplexes. Those two are going to put it on you, and you could have had them in an amateur
Oh my God.
wrestling match. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What are yours?
Well, we've had some crossover because I agree with you. The HBK match is unbelievable. Also, that Mania 19 match is great too. I personally enjoyed their Iron Man match later on in the year. It was like September of that year. They had it on SmackDown. They had an Iron Man match on SmackDown, and it was really good, dude. That was a great match. For people who don't know, Lesnar and Angle also fought outside of WWF. In 2006, they fought in New Japan, one match, and
I didn't know that,
dude. You can find it on YouTube. It's really hard hitting. It is definitely strong style, but with the technical gifts that Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar bring to a wrestling ring. And this was before Brock Lesnar really changed his style up to what we know of it today. But I could see how this match might have inspired the beginning of that turn. So that's just a little, maybe a hidden gem, but just people should look for that. Also, versus Undertaker at No Way Out in 2006 as well.
Yeah,
dude,
that's a
that
good
match
one
was
too.
a fucking masterpiece, especially for that was during that period of time when Taker was just having bangers. So that unbelievable. People should check that out. Obviously, the Royal Rumble match in 2003 against Chris Benoit. However you feel about Benoit, the match itself is unreal and is a real masterpiece in my view of storytelling. Against Samoa Joe, Genesis 2006, his TNA pay-per-view debut. Those guys just absolutely beat the hell out of each other, but it's such a great match from start to finish. Great psychology between the two. He had great chemistry with AJ Styles as well. So Slammiversary 08, check that out. Am I going on too much? I kind of feel like I'm doing one of your
Not at all.
where I'm
No.
like, I have one, but I really have 8. So I have.
First of all, do you ever think I would yell at you for that?
I don't think you would. I don't know why I got in my own head as I'm sitting here ranting on it. A couple more, and one of them is probably in my personal view the best triple threat match WWE has put on, and it's Vengeance 2002. It's The Undertaker versus Kurt Angle versus The Rock for the Undisputed Championship. I don't know what the hell was going on, because I don't think we ever saw those three guys in a match together again, but the stars aligned and everything was clicking with all three of them. And I think people should check that out. Just unbelievable chemistry there. Really great moveset variations. They were all sort of doing each other's finishers, but in like you got like Rock gave Undertaker a choke slam, and it's like one of the weirdest things you'll ever see. But it's a great match, a really fun match to watch. That's what I would say. It's like a really fun triple threat match.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, just check out his matches with Austin at SummerSlam 2001. Check out his match against Rock in No Way Out 2001. I mean, those guys, Angle, really. I guess what this is a testament to is just how versatile and just how great of a performer Kurt Angle was. I mean, you already mentioned Eddie Guerrero too. I mean, there isn't a person out there that Kurt Angle couldn't have a good match with.
Yep. Yeah, no, Mike, I 100%
one exception. Baron Corbin is the one person.
Oh yeah,
good match with.
Yeah,
And
good point.
I have a whole thing about that, but we can wait on that.
We'll get to that one. You talk about his versatility and stuff. There is one backstage thing that I forgot to mention that I do want to touch on because it's one of my favorites. And I can't remember his matches with Triple H. I'm sure they were good. I don't remember them. I don't remember them. They're not like one that pops in my head. I'd have to go back and look. But he had this like it was a feud with Triple H, but where he was like Stephanie's best friend,
Oh
and
yeah,
dude, that killed me. That killed me because Chris Jericho was involved in that too. It was like this
he
whole
was.
thing between and oh, it was so good, and he played it off perfectly. Like, what's your problem, Triple H? I'm just best friends with Stephanie. And then they would go backstage and he's like stretching her and
Oh
like doing all
yeah,
this stuff.
yeah. And I remember that because didn't Triple H end up doing the same thing with Trish because it was supposed
Yeah,
to have
pretty
a match,
much.
and then Stephanie walks in and he was like showing her something. It looked like
Yeah.
a very
Mhm.
precarious situation. So it was.
Yep.
That was funny. That was funny.
Yeah, and it was like this. They were on the same side, but Triple H clearly hated Kurt Angle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he
And
did. He did.
it was just like this simple stuff like that. That was awesome. You know?
No, just the way they played it off. They had. I think it's just a testament to Angle. Really, the guy. It's the word that keeps coming up is versatility. But look at
Yeah.
him. I mean, this guy was able to adjust to whatever situation he was in, whatever opponent he was facing in the ring. I mean, look at when you look at all the matches this guy had. Some of them, I mean, for a guy who hated having stipulation matches, which he said he did, that Hell in a Cell match, remember that big 6-man that he was a part of?
Of
That
course.
was a friggin'
Yeah.
phenomenal match. And
One
then
with the Rock promo.
yeah,
Yeah.
the famous Rock promo. And
Mhm.
then his, like you said, his street fight with Shane. I mean, the TLC match that he had with the Shield, that was probably his best match in his last run.
Yeah, agreed. No, look, I don't disagree with that. So, you know, before we get into like the downfalls
I
of
know.
his career and like what happened, why isn't this guy like revered in WWE? Like we'll touch on that. But like you know, we're talking about all these matches. Like, what are some of like the dream matches? And I think we've talked about some of these
Oh,
before.
of course.
But like, if you were to pick, you know, one, maybe two matches that we haven't seen that you would like to see with Kurt Angle, who would it be? And like, it doesn't have to be right now. It could be
Mhm.
like Kurt Angle in his prime versus someone else in his prime, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think everyone's, and I think this was on one of my own lists too, but Kurt Angle versus Bret Hart.
Yeah,
I
no
mean,
doubt.
I think that's a lot of people's technical fantasy match is
Yeah.
those two going at it. Also, I would say him and Finn Balor, because I'm just a Finn Balor guy. So I just love I love that dude. I love the work that he puts out there. So I think those two could have a really great match as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Bret was obviously my number one. I
Yeah.
mean, I would also think like a match in his prime versus like Danielson, right?
Yeah.
Brian
Absolutely.
Danielson would be a good one. I mean, you take these guys and you look at some of his better matches against the Guerreros, Benoits, like who are those guys now? And you know, it would be like the Brian Danielson, like that's who is the technical guy now. But I mean, I'm sure we could come up with a million others because it's going to be a good match no matter what you do.
Right. That's why I just put down all the elite guys. I mean, he could have a great match with all of them. I mean, even if it was each Young Buck on their own or Adam Cole, obviously Omega, that's another one.
That would be a really good one, actually.
He could do it. Because
that would
it really
be a
doesn't
great
matter
match.
the style. Angle was able to adjust to that.
It's funny because, and I know we're going to touch on this, right? It probably, you know what? This is a great segue.
All right.
We talked about
let's segue.
matches.
Let's segue.
You know, what is Kurt Angle's influence on, you know, wrestling in general? And I'm going to say it just like this. Look at AEW. Like the matches we see in AEW, maybe not right at this moment, but when it first started, what we loved about it were those banger matches that we would see all the time. And I'm not talking about the flippity floppity boopity boppities. I'm talking about like the matches that steal the show.
Yeah.
And you could have a list of 5 in a pay-per-view, or even on a Dynamite, there were probably 2 or 3 back in the day you would look at and be like, oh, this is a great match. And I use that example as the Royal Rumble. We don't need every match to be like that, right? Like the Chris Benoit versus Angle match. But I think those types of matches that you would see influenced AEW. right? Because WWE for a period of time was going away from a lot of that. And you need a couple of those matches where it's technical and you tell the story in the ring and you see like that storytelling that you don't necessarily have to see in every single match, you know?
So
And I
are you
see that
saying,
influence in AEW. I see that type of match.
are you saying that it's more Kurt Angle sort of influenced that style of sort of slowing it down?
Yeah.
Well, it's not even slowing it down. It's going at a pace that it always was. But right now, a lot of the matches tend to have, like, it's almost on fast forward. Like when you're watching a match, it's like, all right, so this is happening. Another next thing's going to happen. Another next thing's going to happen. But okay, I see what you're saying, and I could see that. I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I totally agree with it, but
That's fine.
I can see how there's some influence there.
Yeah, and maybe it's not just him, but that type of
that style.
Yeah,
that's a very old. I almost dated myself. Almost said old school. It's not old school, but what it is I think a more traditional style, and the traditional main event guy style, which is a little bit slower paced. There's going to be more. It's going to be those kinds of high spots are going to be more peppered in. They're not. It's not going to be throughout the whole match. Like there will be like here and there, but that's not really what the match is going to be built around.
Right. Yeah. No, I 100% agree. What would you say would be his biggest, legacy?
I think in terms of how Kurt Angle has affected the business of professional wrestling is that he showed you that you can go into other arenas and find athletes to come into the world of pro wrestling and be successful. And I think it's opened a lot of doors for, where they are now in terms of where they recruit.
Yep.
I think just recently there was an interview Triple H was doing talking about how they now have this deal where they can start recruiting college athletes as they're sort of coming out. NIL, right. And I think that is such an evolution of this business and such an untapped market in a way, talking to athletes who aren't going pro, but were incredible college athletes. And now they're left without this sort of outlet of, well, what do I do now with all of this athleticism, all this skill, all this training? Now what? It's just sort of over now once I walk that aisle and get my diploma. So this is sort of offering them a new way, a new skill set for them to develop or to incorporate what they were doing before. And I think Kurt Angle showed that there are people that can come over from those different worlds and with the right training and with the right mindset and with good mentorship along the way can be incredibly successful and contribute even more to the business.
And look at Bianca Belair.
Absolutely.
Look at Gable Stevenson, and you haven't seen much of him. Look at Chad Gable, and even Otis. Otis was a wrestler too.
That's right.
I think what you've seen is in the past, the old school wrestlers would shun those guys because they're not wrestlers, right? And now he opened the door to say, hey, look, maybe not everybody is like that. We can use that athletic experience and move forward. And it's a mind shift. And I think you can have the best of both worlds with that. And I 110% agree with you. And it is a mindset that you have to have when you come into wrestling. It is not. It is not the sports world that you're used to. It's different. It's entertainment, and you have to adapt to them just as much as they have to adapt to you. So I think he showed that it's very possible and very possible at a high level. So I agree 110% with you.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead, Mikey.
Well, I just wanted to touch a little bit on, I know I don't want to focus too much on like the quote unquote downfall, because I just don't feel like that's too necessary. But I know that, listen, it's something that a lot of wrestlers struggle with all throughout sports. One of the bigger issues is substance use. And I think that was something he struggled with for a while. And I'm thrilled to see that despite how bad it got for him at certain points. And I know that kind of marred a lot of his TNA run, which sucks because I think he did a lot of good work, but he was sort of struggling with that. I just wanted to say that I'm just thrilled to see where he's at now, that he's healthy now, that he got the help that he needed, because we've seen so many guys that haven't, and we've seen so many guys that have come in and out of their sobriety or, their health when it comes to any sort of substance use. So I just feel like Kurt Angle's like a really good example of someone who really did the work of looking at what are the barriers to me functioning the way I need to, and address them. And I think Kurt Angle is just a great guy. So I love Kurt Angle. He's the man.
Yeah, no, I think it is important to touch on it too, because the biggest point, and you hit on it, is that there's two roads you can take, right? And a lot of guys haven't taken the high road, they've taken the low road, and unfortunately they're no longer with us. And I would hate to have had this podcast and said Kurt Angle was a great guy, and there was so much more he could have given to the wrestling world. And he came out of it, and he's done a great job managing it. And unfortunately, like, I think a lot of his downfall is that drive to stay on top. He had basically 3 broken necks during his career, and he wrestled through a lot of them, to the point where Vince basically said, "Hey, you can't do this anymore. It's not working." And then he turned to painkillers to push through a lot of it, and it was evident that he had issues. And to Vince's credit, he said, "You got to get help," and Kurt said no. And that's where they had this coming apart. And he ended up going to TNA, and it didn't help all of this. And his run in TNA was still good, but like, you got a shell of Kurt Angle. You still got pieces of the good one, but unfortunately now in his later part of career, he comes back to WWE, which I was extremely happy about.
I was pumped.
But I have trouble just watching him move because of his neck. You can just see how badly beat up he was.
I won't argue that point, but I also have to say that I believe that he's even said this himself, that they didn't allow him to wrestle as much as he wanted to. And because of that, you sort of saw the degradation in his abilities as that last run went on. When right before he was like, he left TNA, and then he was kind of doing some independent stints for a little while, but he said he was keeping himself warm, and he was like, I was feeling good, because it's almost like in wrestling, even when you have these kinds of injuries and you're a little older, you need to sort of keep the machine running, like to keep the joints loose and everything. And what happened was, he gets on, and then he gets put in the general manager role, and it's like, well, now you're not really active. And then things just started to sort of like, just I think tighten back up for him, let's say, like with the rest of his body, and it just got really difficult for him.
But even just watching him like,
I know, watching him walk is always rough, because he's got that. There's a shift in like his gait now, like the way he walks.
Yeah.
But anyway, my biggest gripe with his run, that last run, is I just can't help but wonder, was there some sort of grudge that Vince was holding on him when he was there? Like he signed him back, and that cool 6-man thing when he was like a part of the Shield, because I think like Roman had like a staph infection or something like that. Like Roman couldn't wrestle, so it was Angle, Rollins, and Mox. And I can't help but wonder, like, did Vince just not want this to really succeed, or to like see this as like he's teaching him a lesson? Because there were so many decisions made throughout that final run that I just can't help but just shake my head at. I don't know what was going on, especially his final match. There's all this buildup, and it could have been such a wonderful moment, and I feel like it just happened with a whimper. Like he just kind of went off with a whimper. Like there wasn't the same kind of celebration of him that we've seen already with other guys.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, Triple H got his own entrance the second night of WrestleMania just to come out and say, "Welcome to WrestleMania." And that was like his kind of final thing. And he put the boots in the ring. Undertaker, for all the 17 times he retired, was able to have 25-minute chants after a match because it was his last one. What did Kurt Angle get? Baron Corbin in a lackluster build to a match. And I just think they could have done a lot better with him. They could have done a lot better. I had one of my dream matches would have been him one more time versus Cena. I always feel like that would have been a really great full circle moment, as he was John Cena's first match in WWE, so it would have been really great to see him be Kurt Angle's final match in WWE. And Cena wouldn't have phoned it in, or I think Cena already had that kind of legacy about him where it could have sold the match itself, and I think would have maybe made Kurt Angle a bit more enthusiastic too. Because imagine Kurt Angle going into this final thing with Baron Corbin, and I don't want it to sound like I'm shitting on Corbin, but it's just the decisions that were made this match lackluster to me, and that final run.
Mike, you hit the nail on the head. I completely agree, but unfortunately, it's WWE's MO or Vince's MO when it comes to stuff like that.
I know.
And what to Kurt's credit, I think he looks at it like, I'm very grateful to be back here. Like, that's how he looks at it. And I think he obviously doesn't love the way that it ended as well. But I give him credit for being like, you know what? I messed up. I came back. I'm glad I'm home. And I'm just happy to be home. And, I think maybe with Triple H, you'll see a little bit more of his involvement from a legend standpoint, which I'm hoping. I think, he can. The other thing is, how much does he want to be? He seems to be very happy with his family and everything. And I think that's great. But I agree. I think his send off could have been a lot better. And Cena would have been a great way to do it. But to me, that is not what made his career anyways. No. And I don't think people will remember that as much as they'll remember everything else about Kurt Angle. So, that's my standpoint, but I agree with you. I don't think it was the best way to end it. So,
right. Well, what's left on our agenda today, Vito? We got a couple of listener questions.
All right.
Should we read these bad boys out?
Yeah.
All right.
Go for it.
All right. These are going to be directed at you. All right.
Okay. All right.
This is from King Kyoto 78. Oh, somebody loves a little Mike Kyoto. Who would win, Team Angle or American Alpha? Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. They seemed like they could have been a modern day Team Angle if they stuck together long enough.
Yep.
What do you think?
I mean, I'm just going to play bias here. I'm going to say Team Angle all the way. Let's think about that. You got
Benjamin, Charlie Haas.
Yeah, but you have the ultimate teacher in Kurt Angle leading the pack, right? Like, how can you not?
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you on this one. I remember seeing American Alpha down at NXT, and I think we saw them wrestle, didn't we? We might have seen them wrestle.
A little bit. I was phased off a little bit at that point. It was a low point for me with WWE, but I think Team Angle all the way. I don't think it's even close. Although I will tell you that Chad Gable has done a great job, doing his modern day Kurt Angle.
He's actually doing great. Him and Otis are a much better team than I anticipated.
Oh, I love it. I love it very much. But I think it's clear. I mean, do you agree, disagree?
No, I agree. I think American Alpha didn't get enough time to really sort of catch on. So they were mainly down at NXT, and then they kind of got separated once they came up to the main roster. But I remember hearing rumors about them wanting Kurt Angle to like come in and do something with them as like a modern day Team Angle. So it's a good question. All right. So
and there's no way, that storyline about Jordan with Kurt Angle being his father, that was stupid. It was stupid.
It was so dumb.
It should have been Chad Gable. It should have easily been.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good. All right, so the we only have two questions. So the last one is from Tony Cant 19. Nice. A lot of people say his final match with. All right, so here we go. This is kind of what we were talking about. His final match with Corbin should have been with John Cena because of the rivalry in 2002. Besides Cena, if you could pick one wrestler from any company, which would you choose for his final match? Okay, so that's a little bit of a different take.
Yeah, so I agree. It should have been with Cena. That would have been my choice. But I would have if we're talking about like what could have been done, like based on ages and everything, I would have 100% chose Edge or Rey Mysterio.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think Edge would have been great. I think, you get a guy who's coming back off an injury that he thought his career was over, ending someone's career who didn't think he'd be back in WWE. I think there would have been a lot to be said by that. And if they wanted to take the stipulation to the next level, it could have been hair versus career, Edge's hair shaven off versus Kurt Angle's career.
I can't believe I kind of agree with you. I think I would have been happy with that, Edge or Rey Mysterio, given the history that those guys have had.
Yeah,
I think that could work.
You could put
I know
Lesnar
we didn't go
in
outside
there
of
too.
another company, but that is those guys were there, and
like if you wanted to bury Kurt Angle like you kind of did with the Baron Corbin, why not just have Brock Lesnar come in and just
destroy him one last time. Just
give
him one last F5. Like, hey, Kurt, love you. Let's drink some milk after this, and let me drop you with an F5. All right. Correct. All right. Well, so hey, great Q&A, short and sweet. But
hold on. I got one more
surprise.
We could do Ric Flair versus Kurt Angle in another rematch of Ric Flair's last match.
Oh, okay. All right. One last time.
Yeah.
I swear.
One last time again.
You might see me again.
Yeah, one last time again.
I was like Rock and Cena. Once in a lifetime. Well, not really. We'll see you next year. Oh, God. This has been good. This has been a good episode. It's been fun.
Yep, it's true. It's true.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Nice. All right. So, great listener questions. Keep them coming. I will give you a little bit of we should give them a little preview. Next episode is
sure.
We got our build to Survivor Series and AEW Full Gear coming up. So our next episode is going to be focusing on a preview of those. Also, just chatting about some of the hot topics in pro wrestling. So it'll be one of our in real life episodes. And you never know. The episode after that might be in a Survivor Series review with your Strutting From Gorilla host, possibly going to Survivor Series this year. We'll see. Yep. It remains to be seen, but we're hopeful. We're
very hopeful.
Very hopeful. Well, folks, as always, keep up with us on the socials. Keep listening. Keep subscribing. We love hearing your questions, so keep those coming in too. And until next time, keep on strutting.
We now return your perception of reality to you. Until next time.